Beautiful.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Okay. So thank you very much. I'm just lining everything up here for my talk. I'm unfortunately now I'm getting a tool on people's names blocking there we go. So thank you all. I'm thrilled to be able to talk about swallowtail kites and share my photos and my thoughts, my observations. It's always a thrill to do so. This first photo is of an adult swallowtail kite. They're very easy to identify, about a 2-foot wingspan and a white head, which often people confuse them if they don't see them well. They confuse them with eagles. They are, as you can see, really beautiful, beautiful raptors. They have a forked tail. The young ones have a more shallowly forked tail. And what I notice, in having read about swallowtail kites in many different books, is the number of ornithologists, kind of crusty people even, who wax poetic and romantically about what a beautiful bird this is, indeed. And if you don't see them, it's because they're on the wing and flying high, but make sure you look up. They're coming now, even as we speak. There are more and more coming into Florida. So they are called kites. They're one of the species of kites, and paper kites were actually named after this species. These are swallowtail kites in my neighborhood, and as you can see, they're holding on to longleaf pine tree here, looking very much like kites. And believe you me, they're having a fabulous time. They just love the wind. And unlike almost all hawks, they are communal. So this is actually a short video showing them flying in. They forage around neighborhoods in groups after they've nested. This is again in my neighborhood, which is just slightly short of, I'm sorry, slightly north of Sarasota County in Manatee County. And there are about, I'd say 25 to 30 kites, swallowtail kites in this photo. And that's their signature call. So swallowtail kites are only here for 6 months, 5 to 6 months of the year. And as you can see in the brown here, North American kites, well, actually, the ones that we see are, I would call American kites. They spend really our early spring from March to about July, August, mostly in Florida, and up some into South Carolina and Louisiana. And there are also some that fly north into Central America. But the ones that we're really focused on are in the southeastern United States. They migrate over the Gulf twice a year into South America, where they spend time, if you will, they're having their snowbird vacations during our fall and winter or early winter. And right now, most of them are very busy flying over the Gulf and back to Florida and points north of South America. It is a very dangerous travel for them over the Gulf and can lead to rather high mortality. Originally, North American, well, the ones that roosted and nested in North America were found as far north as Michigan, Minnesota, and like 200 years ago, ornithologists reported them in their backyards in Connecticut in the spring and into summer. So their range has shrunk mostly because of trees being cut down everywhere. So I was interested in kites. I was a fairly new birder. And one day in 2016, in early July, I was out in my backyard near sunset, and suddenly a whole flock of what were clearly kites flew right over my head, over our house, and over my neighbor's house into their backyard. And I flew out the door with my binoculars, and my partner grabbed her camera. And this is what we saw in their backyard. The sun is setting. Those are swallowtail kites in that tree. And I had never seen more than one or two before. So these are different views. And, you know, like any birder, I'm counting, how many did I see? And they were calling. Let's see if I can get this sound up for you. This is a very signature kite call. Some more views. And we walked around the other side, and the sun was to our backs, and you can see them a little more clearly. And this is one of my favorite shots of all time. It's taken by my partner. This is an adult kite. It's just a beautiful photo of a kite perched, and you really just don't see very many kites perched, and so clearly. So I thought this was a one-time adventure, a one-night adventure, and to my great joy, they returned to roost in this neighborhood almost every night that year in July and into early August, and have continued to be in this neighborhood after they've had their babies in this tree and other trees in my, within actually half a mile of where I live. So as I say here, when I realized that they were here more than one night, my kite adventures really began. So swallowtail kites are here when they are to nest and fledge their babies. So really you're looking for nests, then you're looking for young ones, and then you're looking for young ones flying around, getting a grip on how it is to fly. And once they get some momentum in terms of flying, they join a group, as I showed you in that one video. Kites love to fly in groups, and often, as I say, very high, so you can't always see them except when they're coming in to roost at night. And then when they actually do migrate, they don't migrate in flocks. They love to hang out in groups here in Florida, but when they're migrating, they might migrate in very small groups, but not necessarily. So because I had found this roost, I was very excited about what kites were about. And I started studying rather informally, but passionately with the AVN Research and Conservation Institute. Ken Meyer runs this group, and he's an awesome man. And when I told him about this roost I found, he said, "That's fabulous. Now go find nests." And I took him really seriously. But the issue was, oh my gosh, where in the heck are the kite nests? And I was still somewhat of a nascent birder at that point, but I wandered my neighborhood, I prowled into private backyards and didn't find any nests. So finally, I begged a birder friend of mine who worked with SwiftMud, it's the Southwest Water Authority. She had private access to so many places for real great birds, and she's a great birder. She told me, let's go to Carlton, I'll show you a nest. Now, Carlton Reserve is the Sarasota County water supply. It's a very big wild area across the road from Myakka State Park. So can you see the nest in this photo? And I guarantee you, if you were standing on this pathway, you couldn't see much better than this photo. Their nests are so hard to spot. And this is the same nest, and you can see a tiny bit of white there. That is a kite on a nest. And this is another nest also in Carlton. It's very hard, as you can see. Now, really, is there a nest there? So this is actually a photo of that white breast in the two photos back. This is probably a female on a nest. And I say here, the parents both incubate the eggs for roughly a month, 27 to 33 days. And the parents take turns with nest sitting. And these photos are all at Carlton. And one kite is on the nest incubating the eggs, and the other one is flying in to take its turn. And here you see both of them, but they're about to switch off. Now, I don't know if you know this, I didn't until I got involved with kites, but a lot of breeding birds have a bare patch on their belly to incubate eggs. And in this case, both the male and females have that bare breast patch. You can't always see it unless you're right underneath them. So here's they're switching places to incubate the eggs. And this is just a photo I like of one of the parents who just flew in when I took this photo and brought dinner with him. It looks like remains of a frog, which is one of the main staples of what they eat. So this photo is actually of a female kite dangling frogs, what looks like maybe just frog legs at this point, over a chick that's less than a week old. And she must be enticing the chick that later I know survives in this nest, but she's just saying, hey, honey, gotta start eating here. So my friend who took me to Carlton, she was very kind and took me to see my very first nest. And this was May 10th, 2017. And the male is on the left and had just brought the female a frog. She's probably incubating eggs that have just hatched or will hatch any day. And this was a very exciting moment for me. And when I went back a week later, I'm sad to say there was no sign of any activity on this nest. I learned later that most likely a great horned owl had killed the nesting kite and any chicks that were there. So I continued my efforts to look for nests, and I finally contacted Carlton and volunteered. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking. Carlton has got an area where you can go bird, but it's got very wild edges, and a lot of people go in and backpack and hike overnight. And I had never really been to this area, to any remote part of it. And yet I was volunteering to go look for nests. But the very kind land manager at the time, Debbie Blanco, gave me a map and said, there's a nest, hikers are reporting, go find it. So I thought I knew exactly, well, according to her map, where the nest was, and it wasn't there. But I'm delighted to report that, maybe call it beginner's luck, but I found an active nest. I begged a friend to walk out into this remote area, 40 minutes off the road. And by gosh, I found a nest, which is really right here in the center of this photo. And there is, I assume, a mother kite with two babies. My friend was incredulous. How did you do that? And I said, well, I don't really know. I just had this intention. I've got to find a live nest. And this is a blow up of that photo. And I suspect that these two chicks are, the one in front is probably 6 days old, 7 days old. The one behind it, 9 or 10 days old. And I was looking at these photos again last night and realizing this is maybe the best photo I've ever taken of very, very young kites. It's very hard to get. The nests are so high up and behind a lot of branches. It's very hard to get good views, especially of the babies, the really little babies. And I say here, this chick these chicks are going to be in the nest for about 40 days. So one chick was obviously bigger than the other, and this is of the bigger chick, photo of the bigger chick, and the mom's watchful eye or parents' watchful eye in the background. And it has this swollen area below its throat. That's a crop in a bird and is regarded as a good sign. It's nice and big and a young kite. So I went back a week later, and you can see that this bigger chick already has some pin feathers. It's the black feathers there. And there was also the second chick, which is off to the left. And all you can see is its rear, and the beginning of some pin feathers and the mother's eye right there on it. You know, like babies everywhere, they conk out 1 minute and then they're wide awake, especially when food comes, and then they conk out again. So I went back a week later. I was really excited and so proud I found this nest, and I really had to drive 40 minutes and hike 40 minutes to get to the nest. And I got there and I was like, oh, what's going on here? And you've got to get this picture. It's a slash pine. It's up really high. The ground is a carpet of wonderful pine needles. And I'm trying every which way to get good views, good photos. And I see just one chick who looks a lot bigger than it did the week before. And I see no parent. What really upset me, though, is I didn't see the second baby kite. And I looked all around. I looked, as best I could up into the nest. And sad to say, or at least from the human point of view, it turns out among hawks, and especially swallowtail kites, or maybe not especially, hawks, baby hawks, usually the firstborn will kill the remaining chick or more that survives. So usually two, and I'd say maybe, based on my own experience, half the time the older chick kills the younger one. Not always, but in this case, I looked everywhere and the younger chick was nowhere to be found. The parents are, by this point, zooming around, hunting, and also hunting to bring luscious frogs and other goodies back to feed their baby. And there's often these nests are so high up, there's no shade, and this bird was really panting. This chick is really panting in the sun. So another 7 days go by, I walk out there again. It's now maybe 10 days from leaving the nest. And I have this, oh my gosh, where is it? Where is it? And I was there for quite a while. And finally it popped up. It was taking a very long siesta. And when I really took a good look at it now, you can see it standing up and its fluffy down is gone. And these are signs that it's maturing and maturing well. It's spreading its wings. It can't fly, but it certainly is testing those wings. And the yellow you see, the base there is probably urine. The nest can get kind of messy and smelly, I guess. It's just part of growing up as a baby. And in this photo, I realized, wow, it's looking a lot more like an adult. And I think, wow, I better start going much more often. So I get there 3 days later. It's looking, as I say, dirty and hot, but it's also looking up a lot more. It's very excited at this point. Maybe like all young children, it's very preoccupied with where are its parents and what will it bring them to eat. They eat almost constantly. And you can see the feet here. Kites have very short legs and you can't band them. You can only put transmitters on them, like backpacks, if you're going to try to track them. And until recently, they couldn't do it. But its feet look pretty darn big here, even though you can't band them. So it's flexing its wings even more. And again, this is the preoccupation with food. I'm just trying to, sorry, I kind of lost my cursor here. There we go. Well, this should play. This is a very short video. There we go. It's a very short video of a kite looking. Parents are cruising out of sight of the video, and it's looking around for food and calling. Its call is higher than its parents. It's begging really for food. And I was not able to capture it, but the parent did deliver a frog. And this became one of my preoccupations with this growing chick, how to get the photo of the parent actually feeding the chick or delivering the frog right to the chick's mouth. So I go back 3 days later, and it's really time for the chick to fledge, to leave the nest. And lo and behold, it's 3 feet out of the nest. The nest is here to the right, and then 3 feet out to the left. Now I'm below trying to get a good angle, and I realize this is not a terribly good photo, but it's like, oh my gosh. And I'm getting its rear kind of, but I felt at that point, that was the best I could do. So here's a close up of the chick. It did turn around. And here comes the parent with a frog. And here's the parent with the frog. The only trouble with this particular setup for a photo is the chick has its rear to the camera. So I'm getting better, but it's still, I'm not getting the right angle. And the chick has the frog, but I don't have the photo. And the parent's to the right and flying off, and we still have the chick from the rear. Now, the joke is on me because actually the chick was in a new angle for me. So actually, if I just walked around the tree and a little bit out into a field, I could get a much better view. So this is the same day. And I realized, wow, I can now really see the chick and see it well. So this is a very cool video, if I do say so myself. This is the chick. Just trying to get this video to. I'm sorry, I don't know why this is a little bit slow. There. The chick sees its parent out of view of the screen. That's the parent flying up to the right. It's circling around and it's going to come in. Watch lower left, way lower left. It's coming in to bring food to the chick. And you barely see it. That's the adult again. It's trying to get in past the branches and navigate the nest. So watch, the chick is, wait a minute. Oh, there's my parent with, pardon me, with, it's going to come in. It's butchering something in the nest. I don't know if you could see it fly in. There, it flew in. So now watch really quickly. The adult is going to very quickly feed that chick. It's butchered something and is bringing part of the food to the chick. And the chick's got a very careful eye on when that food is going to come. There you go.
Yay. And
that's the adult calling. Bye-bye for now. It's got a deeper call. Can you get some water?
Margie, can you turn the sound up a little bit on the video?
I'm not sure I can do that. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks.
So here are some stills from that same day. This looks more and more like an adult kite. If you notice, its tail is a bit shaggy, and it's not even quite a juvenile in the sense that its tail is it's not forked at all. A real juvenile kite will have a shallow fork to its tail. This is more like just shaggy, the beginning of a forked tail. And when I left that day and I saw its wings like this, it's like, oh boy, this bird is ready to fly. And this is the first time I saw a fledgling kite, a practically fledgling kite. So I wasn't sure what would happen when I went back the next time. And I went back 3 days later and I could not find the kite, the chick, now fledgling kite, anywhere. I looked all over the place. The nest is directly above my head, my shadow of my head. And I looked everywhere, but couldn't find it. I know now that it was probably in a nearby tree, and the parents are very vigilant. Parents always know where the newly fledged chick has gone. And it's amazing. I'll show you more later. They always know how to get the food to the chick. So this is a summary of my surveying kite nests in Carlton Reserve that in 2019. And you don't need to read all this, but just basically, we found 6 nests, 2 failed. And from those 4 nests that succeeded, there were 5 fledgling kites. But, you know, I looked with 2 very experienced people in Carlton, and we're not sure, maybe we only found 1/4 to 1/3 of all the nesting kites that were there on that very big property. So just one highlight from this year when I was volunteering to look for nests all spring and early summer. This stand of trees is way out. There is a dried up marsh there, but I had special permission to drive my SUV and unlock gates, so it was really fascinating and really fun. And they're very rare birds there, you know, red-headed woodpeckers, Bachman sparrows, towhees. It was just a fabulous experience. And one kite had been banned. It actually had a transmitter put on its back and was named Sarasota by the Avian Research and Conservation Institute and by the land manager. And the land manager had the coordinates and told me how to get out to this very remote stand of trees. I had to kind of go around the side here, and I was determined to get there. And it was a real experience, believe you me. So that's off in the distance. We got closer, and you'll see this sort of vague orange band around a tree. Well, that's the nest of Sarasota's chick. And it was like, oh no, I have to walk through palmetto. Now, I don't know if you've had this experience. I've had a lot of experience now with this, but I thought, you mean you walk in there? And it was like my shoulder height or above my head. And it was a really challenging. It's like and I couldn't see the orange tape when I actually did walk into the palmetto until I got very close. And this is, I showed you this photo before, and I got into the palmetto. I had to back up once I was in the palmetto. It wasn't enough to just get there. I had to even back up further into the palmetto, but I got a picture of the nest with the mother. And I found out it was the mother because at the same time, I took a photo of a kite leaving the nest. And this is the kite, the male kite, Sarasota, with a backpack on its transmitter. So that's how we found the nest, or other people found the nest in the first place. And you can see it's got a lizard in its talons. So this video, I'm going to show you, this was another expedition into the palmetto. And I'll show you what it's like to stand there and zoom in and zoom out to find the nest. It's very high up, it's very windy. And every time I would go there, I'd have to figure out all over again, now exactly where is this once I'm in the palmetto.
Oh, God.
These are all slash pines. Wonderful birds all around, very rare birds. And there are other kites cruising around, including the parents, wondering, what is this woman doing? What is this human doing walking around below us? And they pretty much left me alone, except one time I decided to wear a broad brimmed hat and they flew right over me like, get that hat out of here. So as I say here, this bird, this chick will leave in about another 2 to 3 weeks. And here's another view taken just 2 days later by a friend of mine who I took to see this nest. And I had grand plans. I was going to go out there every day when it got a little closer and make sure I caught it, you know, fledging, leaving the nest. And unfortunately, nature intervened and there were terrible storms and lots of rain, and the land manager forbade me to go. It was even in my SUV or in her truck, it was just too treacherous. You could get stuck there and you couldn't call AAA. So by the time I got back out there, this chick had, we think, very successfully fledged, but I didn't ever see it again. But I was very lucky. The same year, a friend of mine at Celery Fields, which you may know is sort of the #1 birding attraction in Sarasota County, found 2 recently fledged kites. July, well, the very end of July into August, and they both chicks were raised. One did not kill the other. They both grew up and they're fledgling. They're now juvenile fledgling kites. They're out of the nest, and this is their parent. One of their parents actually flying down Celery Hill, which is a part of Celery Fields. If you've ever been there, it's an artificial hill, but this is a wonderful photo, I think, of shows the parent cruising toward the juveniles. This is a parent with, I don't know what this is for sure, probably a dragonfly. And here is the parent with the frog. Now the parent's got the frog in the center, and you've got 2 hysterical babies or fledglings like, feed me, feed me, feed me. Now at this point, they still need to be fed, but they're being weaned. They're being taught how to hunt. And this is a video of these 2 chicks. They have quite a, sorry, it's slow to get these videos going. That's a juvenile. This is a juvenile. They're more high pitched in their calls. And this video shows also the adult, the parent flying here, and you can see how beautifully they navigate. They're incredibly agile. This is a very, very strong wind, and the parent has got to get back to those 2 chicks and to feed one of them. I mean, both will be fed, and it takes quite a while. It doesn't succeed almost. It's got to bank and come around again. And both fledglings are just kind of hysterical to get fed. Meanwhile, you know, the parent out of view is circling around and around, trying to get into those branches and get to one of those excited kites. And she succeeds. Here's another view. And actually it's as I say, the adult is in the upper left. And one of the 2 juveniles has got its wing around the mother to make sure, or that parent, to make sure it gets the food. Another food delivery. And this photo somehow makes me, you're not supposed to project human feelings onto birds, but to me, both these birds look like, wait a minute, where in the world did they go with the food? I want my food. And this is just a very short clip. Being fed and the adult calling. They seem to call as they go away, like, and then you can see that the fledgling is going off and starting to hunt on it. Well, it's going off to start to hunt on its own. So having worked with nests, I'm going back to what I first saw, which is the pre-migratory roost and the one that I had in my neighbor's backyard. And so after kites raise their babies and before they migrate, they travel around in groups. And these roosts are only really visited before migration. And they will sometimes, there are different established roosts, but different kites will fly. It's like visiting different hotels. You don't always, even though you see a lot of kites in these roosts, they're not always the same exact birds, unless they have fledglings, in which case it's my sense that they tend to stay close to the roosts where they were nesting. So I'll show you more about what I mean by all this. So this is a small section of one of the biggest pre-migratory roosts, which, as I say here, is west of Lake Okeechobee, near Fish Eating Creek. This is a very famous roost. There may be several thousand here. The people don't really want to let people know where exactly it is, because people go and harass them with photos and drones and what have you. This is not my photo. This was taken by the Avian Research and Conservation Institute. But this gives you an idea. A lot of them are go to very big roosts once they've raised their babies, and their babies or their fledglings come with them. And this is my roost, or what I would call my roost, my neighborhood roost that I first discovered. And it's at its maximum here with 44 birds. Sadly, there's not as many as there used to be. And they go to this particular tree, which is a very old tree, old growth longleaf pine in my neighborhood, or they go to cypress trees, which are about a sixth of a mile away. So I explained already, we don't know, just because we see kites there every day in the pre-migratory roosting trees doesn't mean that they're always the same particular birds there. This is a view of my neighborhood with the red dot where I live. And just to very briefly, I live on the edge of a golf course. And I'm telling you this, you don't need to pay a particular attention to the geography here, except if you're looking for kite nests, you'll notice that the Braden River is over here on the right. And there's a lot of stand of trees and deep ravines. So you're likely to find kite nests in this kind of open spaces of golf courses, and then with trees on the edges or along streams. They're nest close to water, and as I say, lots of stands of trees. So here's a view of kites flying in. At the end of the day, they collect different kites that are flying in the neighborhood, and they join them for the night, maybe several nights in the roost. And they come in, or they fight the storms together in stands of trees. Here's another view of them flying. And for some reason, so many people never see this. It's very beautiful to watch. And a lot of people think they're seeing eagles, but eagles don't collect like this. This is very unusual to see hawks flying in groups. The one on the left is a juvenile. In fact, probably they're both juveniles here, but the one on the left has got a especially shallow tail. This was taken near sunset. This is sort of like super bird. but it's just the light, of course, on the wings. And I talked about this one tree this tree seems to have been here for a very, very long time based on the bark. It's a longleaf pine. It looks sort of like it's falling apart, but it self-prunes, longleaf pines do. And they love pine trees. They love to be in the tallest tree in the neighborhood. And I want to highlight this because it's so important we don't cut down trees. And especially old growth trees. And you can see there are trees all around this tree, but this tree is especially tall. In fact, the tallest one on the golf course, and they love to roost there. This is a video of activity in this tree at night. So that high-pitched call, I'm sorry if you can't hear it too loudly, but the high-pitched call is the juvenile kites going, where the heck are you? I want to eat. Now they can hunt for themselves, but young birds beg, and these juvenile kites are no exception. You're going to hear a deeper call, and that's the parent. That galloping bird call is the parent, or the adult kites. And they're coming in to roost for the night. But the begging juveniles are like, hey, wait a minute, I'm still want to be fed. And you'll see them fed on the wing. It's pretty cool. So here's a juvenile flying into this same tree and with different lighting. And it's cruising around begging and asking any adult to please feed it. And you'll notice the adults are kind of ignoring it. So it flies to a different part of the tree, hoping that some kite will feed it. So they also gather in the cypress tree, which is the cypress grove, which is about 1/6 of a mile away and on the edge of a lake, also on the golf course. So as I say, kites are communal birds, especially once they've raised their babies. And if you really look closely, if you're fortunate enough to find a roost, you can find a lot of interesting activities that occur once they've come in for the night. And this shows about 9 kites that have come in for the night. They roost together again, preening, sleeping. And in the rain, they huddle together so closely, it's really hard to count them. And they're not early birds. They wait for the thermals to rise. So they will often fly, if they need to a tree where they can really get a lot of good sun to warm up. And so that the thermals, as I say, will help them fly. Because they really live in the wind when they're not roosting. So this is a view of a kite specialty. The one on the right has got a wasp's nest, which is a real delicacy. And I have a lot of photos of this. The kite's flying around and around this group. Look what I got, you can't have it. I mean, of course, I'm just projecting my human thoughts on it, but look at the expressions on the kite's faces. It's like, oh no, you have something and I want it. And obviously this kite is not going to share it. They have a special something to their stomach so they can eat a lot of wasps and wasp larvae and all kinds of things like that. So this is a photo of them kettling over our house in a lightning storm. And it was just lightning. It was kind of terrifying. In fact, it was kind of hard to photograph this. And they were having the best time. They loved that wind and that electricity. And as I say, they love the wind. So this is a video. It was taken the same day. the two different views of kites in our neighborhood. This was a windstorm. There was no lightning, there was no rain. But they just love to fly. And they're calling. And this was the same day, different view, different lighting. So this is another view of this roosting tree that's very, very old and venerable. Just to say, it's so important not to cut down trees that are so valuable. And as I say, July, August, they leave for South America. Now, I'm almost done, but I just wanted to tell you that I have a few more slides. Right as the pandemic struck, I think Mother Earth really favored me. For all that everything was locked down, I was blessed to finally find 2 kite nests in my very neighborhood, about 1/6 of a mile away. So, and I won't go into the details, but these are the 2 nests that I found. These are adults, one on the left, one on the right, and really very close to where I live. And these are photos of the chicks when they were close to fledging. They 2 fledged in 1 nest. They look almost like adults, that photo on the left. And the one on the right was a single kite that fledged from that nest. And I'm not sure what's in that, his or her bill. It looks to me like it might be a stink bug. I've not been able to figure out what that is. They love stink bugs. And this is just a cool photo. In one tree, it was just covered with sphagnum moss. And once the chick left the nest, it was impossible. I spent hours there looking to try to find where the chick went in the sphagnum moss. And finally I found it, and it was surrounded by a bunch of frogs. The parents always know where the fledgling kite is, no matter where it is. It's astonishing. So that they're always taken care of. And I used to worry, oh my gosh, when they leave the nest, do they die? Sometimes, but not for want of care by the parents. And here, the same kite, the one that was in the moss, is now flying free. Its parents are the 2 on the right, and then it's the lower left. And the nest that had 2 chicks, they did not kill one another. I think they were hatched about the same time, and they even left the nest the same day, and there they are together. This is the day after they left the nest, and they're down low in this you'll see it. Oh, I beg your pardon, the bottom of this photo. They're with a whole roost of adults, their parents and other fledgling chicks in the local neighborhood. And this was last year, just a year ago, slightly over a year ago. This is a parent with 2 babies. One is very small. And this is the other nest. And you can see there are 2 chicks here. This is taken from very far away, but the parent is feeding 1 chick. And I don't know if you can see, but the second chick to the left of it is there with its mouth open, waiting to be fed. And then this is the nest I just showed you. The chicks become sort of ungainly looking as they get a little older. And again, it's not always easy to really get good photos of them, but there's a chick on either side of an adult, one of their parents right there. And there you have it, swallowtail kites, America's beautiful hawk. And the credits. And I especially just want to acknowledge Carlton Reserve's people and the Avian Research and Conservation Institute, Ken Meyer, and all of them are doing wonderful work with transmitters on kites so we can find out where they go and what they're doing. So thank you all.
Thank you, Margie. That was really wonderful. I can't believe how lucky you are to have all of those kites in your neighborhood, and nesting kites, no less. That I am envious. One of the questions that we have is, what kind of camera and lens do you use for these very long shots?
I'm just trying to get to. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to. I'm just trying to get my out of here so I can see you all.
Well, most people are in hiding right now anyway.
Yes, well, I did.
And if everybody wants to open up their video now, that would be fine.
So, just, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get.
Excuse me. Hey, honey, I can't talk right now. I'm not any good.
Okay, so,
I gotta get off the phone.
so the camera that I'm using
Bye-bye.
now is an RX 10 Sony Sony camera with a Zeiss lens. It's RX 10. It's a wonderful camera and it's very video, and it's got a great video capability. It was originally designed for video.
How long is the lens?
I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
It's
500?
not a detachable lens. It is.
Oh,
one
it isn't.
lens. No, it
Oh,
isn't. And
okay.
some of the earliest photos that we took, especially of the roost when I first found it across the street, I did with a Nikon P900.
Oh, sure.
But we switched it out because that we really like this this Sony camera from walking around and birding. And I noticed, I don't want to be sexist here, but it seems like almost every woman birder in Sarasota County who's really out birding uses this camera.
Oh, yeah?
It's 600 millimeters.
Ah, okay. It seemed even longer. That was a long distance that you had to go with your lens to see those kites and the kite nests. Really wonderful.
Thank you. It takes a lot of time, even once I found all of these nests, to really, get good shots.
Mhm.
Especially that one where I show you with the two babies and the mother feeding it, or the
That
parent
was
feeding.
awesome.
Thank you.
Great shot. So I'm going to go through some questions here and some comments. Let's see how far back. Let's see. New camera and lens. I'm going to give you some of the thank yous also. Thank you for this wonderful presentation from a number of people. Great talk, beautiful photos. You're the best. Loved your presentation. Great photos. Thank you for sharing your amazing story and photos with us. Where should I look in Boynton Beach area? I don't know whether you can answer that one.
No, I think what you should do is, let's see, if I were going to look for nesting kites, or I think the most important thing is just to start looking up in areas where there are pine trees, but sort of in a line. So kites don't like to fly into the middle of a very dense forest. They'll usually find the forest edges, like that stand of trees. I don't know if you could see in that Carlton Reserve. That was probably a planted stand of trees, but it was like not so deep so that they could fly in and out. They need to fly in and out of the nest or in and out of the roost. So I think that the more you look, I hate to say this, but the more you look, the more you're likely to find them. And they can, there are roosting kites in South Miami in residential neighborhoods. So we know from the transmitters they've found on kites. that they can be really kind of anywhere, but they need to be near water and stands of pines.
Okay. Another comment, just a great presentation and fantastic pictures and slides. Thank you. Thank you again. Learned a lot. Fantastic. Thank you. Margie, thank you for your wonderful presentation. Thank you. Great shots. Why do the kites go to South America in July and August? It seems that would be the opposite of what I would have expected.
I'm not quite sure how that would be the opposite, but they would go toward the warmer climate. And what I've learned from watching kites is seasons are different for them. Like right now we're in spring, and I think the more we bird, the more we realize we're really in definite spring. The kites in my neighborhood, I expect back within a week. And just as an aside, that's really fascinating to me is once I found the nest, they came into my neighborhood and on the 28th of February and last year, one day later, March 1st, and they went back to the very same nest, which is another argument for please don't cut down trees, especially old growth, big, tall pines.
How long do they come back to you in pairs? I mean, they've already established their pairing.
That's a good question. I don't know for sure because there are no transmitters on the kites that I've studied here. But I do believe that the same, as long as the male and the females and the children, the first year returning kites, as long as they survive traveling over the Andes and over the Gulf, that in fact they come back. And I saw last year, it looked to me like the females came back first. And why do I say females? Because one was sort of part-time in the nest before I saw any other adult show up. And so it seemed like, honey, I'm here, I'm ready. Where are you? Comes, and they didn't fly back together, but it seemed that they were the same pair. And then, and just from where they were, it seemed like they're the ones that the nest that hatched two juveniles. It seemed like they also came back and were around their parents, especially when I first saw them back. And then I thought, oh no, the other nest isn't. That second nest isn't gonna. I don't know what happened to the female, but then, suddenly I saw a female there and then she wasn't there. And then suddenly I saw both of them there and then they were incubating the eggs, which I could not see. But so, you sort of just get a sense after a while. And I don't know, people swear that they know me. I have been privileged to watch other kites in nearby neighborhoods through Sarasota, Audubon, and they don't like humans, but they seem to like me, or, oh, there's that human again, standing there for hours looking at us. And maybe they kind of get to know you or get to know my human vibe or something.
Do you get to see any of the courtship behavior?
Yes. Yes, a lot of it's sort of flying around. But one of the, in terms of courtship, I think the most striking courtship behavior was the year before last, when the two chicks had left the nest. The next day I went out much earlier wondering, well, what's the vibe of the group, the roosting kites? They're still in the neighborhood and they're feeding their young. And in fact, the young are on a branch that must have been the two parents, because they copulated. And I had never seen that before. I've seen videos, but what I thought was fascinating was their chicks had just left the nest the day before. And they say, I've heard that they renew their bond by copulating, and they couldn't possibly have a second brood. But it's sort of like, oh, honey, we got to try again because the kids have left the nest. It really was kind of, I was really moved that I could tell that, wow, it was clearly those parents and their kids.
That's pretty neat. Okay. Some more questions. I have a 6-foot delta wing kite that I had up to about 800 feet. And suddenly many hawks swarmed around the kite. I can share the photo, but I'm wondering if you'd know why the hawks were doing this. Why the hawks swarmed his or her kite.
What kind of kite was this?
I guess it says a 6-foot delta wing kite. Like I guess that's a paper kite or whatever those big kites are made of.
Well, is that a paper kite or kites are a very varied species of bird. So I'm not.
Right, but I don't think that's what he was talking about when he said I fly kites.
Oh, okay. He flies kites. I
Right,
didn't catch that.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they're pissed off. Get that thing out of here. You know, eagles are known to attack drones. And when I wore this big floppy sun hat, because I was going through the palmetto out in Carlton, I thought it would keep the sun off my face better. And wow, I have never had a kite fly so close to me and I could hear the creaking of their wings. It was kind of cool, but I had the very definite sense. It's like, get that thing off of your head and don't bring it back. It was enough that this human was walking through below where the nest was, but to have this big floppy hat was just unconscionable to them. They didn't want it. That's
interesting. So someone here says, I saw photographed kites in Fellsmere. I'm pretty sure Fellsmere, I think, is where there's a roost. Sandhill Crane Access Park, Palm Beach Gardens kites show up. What does the tail enable the birds to do?
Great question. The tail is really an amazing rudder. And it's been studied a lot because they can do amazing turns and fly upside down, navigate very narrow areas. And it's all because the tail can turn 90 degrees. So it's really a wonderful rudder. And it's famous for that.
Interesting. Somebody would like you to rename the name of your camera. I didn't get it the first time.
What are you gonna do?
I believe it was put in the chat.
Add to the chat.
Oh, here it is. Yes, very good. Thank you. So Bruce, right below you, Leslie put in Sony RX-10 version 3 or 4. And let's see. Kay is saying here, occasionally we see kites at our Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. And we've seen them sometimes at Corbett Wildlife Management Area.
Great. If you were to go and watch them regularly, you might find a roost, you might find a nest. And again, you're going to find nesting kites now in the next month. And then you'll tend to find babies hatching sort of like from mid-April. And it's really fun to watch the chicks as they start to leave the nest. But that's sort of like can be from the beginning of May to the middle of May and even into June. It's amazing to watch what they'll do. And especially if they're a big group, it's like the whole group will support the babies leaving the nest. And where I live, it's a golf course. It's almost like a runway. And I don't think the golfers know what the heck is going on, but the birds are all around cheering the babies flying up and down the greens, especially when the golfers are out of sight.
That sounds like fun.
It is fun.
Okay, I'm going to read. In the past year, as a total amateur, I've spotted them overhead in Cypress Creek Natural Area, which is in Jupiter.
Great.
And another place, Crew Rookery Trail in Naples, over the turnpike driving toward Orlando, and even right over my home in downtown Delray. These were all isolated cases of 1 or 2 birds.
Well, one of the things that's really helpful to know is you'll see them over highways because they like the air currents, and not just kites, but I noticed I've seen amazing hawks and had to be careful not to look too carefully when I'm driving, because it looks like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that kind of hawk before. And I can't pull off fast enough to take a look and keep driving. But anyway, you'll see a lot of kites over highways because of the air currents.
Good to know. Bruce says, Leslie, thank you. And Carol here, thank you, Margie, for all the fascinating information and beautiful photos and videos. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Great camera if you're not using changeable lenses. Okay, and thanks. Somebody says ripstop nylon. So that must be what the kite was made of.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking, how long does it take them to get to South America?
Yep. Just caught
That's
up
a
with
good
that.
question. I don't know, but they can last 3 to 4 days without water or food over the Gulf. And there are amazing, some kites have just had amazing, looked like they were not going to make it, and the currents suddenly blew them the way they needed to go. And there have been other times where they were very close to shore and didn't make it. So but anyway, roughly 3 days and nights. And they take off from Monroe, down in the Keys, or over on our side, the west side of Florida, they go down as far down as they can and then take off. And then they fly to Mexico. And then they go through Central America, but they have to get most of the kites go over the Gulf itself, which is really treacherous.
Sherry is saying here, thanks for adding to the life history of this incredible species with your dedication to document them, even outwitting palmettos. And another comment, they may eat dragonflies during their migration route, as the dragonflies are also migrating.
Good point. Yes, I would think so. They eat dragonflies in our neighborhood. That's one reason why they're here, is because there are lots and lots of water sources and dragonflies, and their standard food is really frogs and dragonflies and wasp nests, any kind of insect. And when they're feeding their babies, and they do feed them baby birds from other species.
We have come to the end of our comments and questions. It was wonderful to have you. Really appreciated it. And I know we had a very good turnout, though I don't know how to read what the total was. Somebody.
One of the questions is that Riverbend Park is a good place to go early in the spring.
But how come your question didn't get in there?
I don't know, I couldn't get on chat.
Oh, and who's speaking to us?
Peter Lopez.
Speak.
I was just making a comment that Riverbend Park, again, near Jupiter, is a good place early in the spring to see the migrating kites.
Do they just fly over, or do they roost there, or do they
They
nest?
spend some time there. It's open pine woods,
Yeah.
and it's a perfect habitat for them.
That's right. That would be a great place to go see them.
Grand Park, and the other place was
Cypress Creek.
Yeah, that's next door. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They love cypress trees and longleaf pines, any kind of pine trees, as long as they're tall.
Yeah.
So that's really great. I would be really curious to know if anyone finds nests or roosts, and I'm happy to coach you and talk to you and tell you what to do. You're going to be putting this up, I guess, as video, right? And people can find me on Facebook
Yeah,
as Margi Haas if you want to contact me and let me know if you've found a roost, and I will certainly keep it confidential. And I'm glad to give people feedback as they need about what to do, and you can report it. And in fact, there are wonderful reporting lines, which I can share with everybody.
that'd be
Basically,
great.
you want to go to the Avian Research and Conservation Institute on Facebook, or go to their website and report any when you see them flying through, because they are keeping track of numbers and where they go. Well, thank you so much. It's always a great pleasure to talk about kites and to see this wonderful group and their enthusiasm. I love all these questions, so thank you so much. I wish you all well.
Thank
and
you.
Good luck in your observations of kites and all birds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing to everybody. I just want to let you know that coming up next week, we have a gentleman named Joel Such, and he's going to give a talk on photography and conservation. And he's going to be doing it from Brazil, because that's where he's working at the moment. And then we also, and that's on the 28th in the regular time. We also have coming up is a presentation for all of AE with Clyde Butcher. And he is the most amazing photographer, and especially he photographs a lot in Florida. Right now, or for many years, he's been doing just black and white, and his work is really breathtaking. And he is certainly, I would consider, a conservation photographer. And he's going to be on March 8th, which is not the normal date of the month that we do our presentations for AE, but this is an exception because that was the only date we could get him. So don't forget to check your calendar and make sure you do it on March 8th as opposed to the normal date that we would. And that's pretty much it. Does anybody have a last minute question? Otherwise, I'm going to close up the show. Everybody good? Okay.
Nancy, we might also want to mention that Margie has given us quite a bit of inspiration for our upcoming event that's in March 21st. We'll be having a critique session with Carl Siebert. We'll be looking at our photographs. So we're hoping that the inspiration we got tonight, as well as what we hear next week from Joel on conservation, will give us a lot of things to think about and inspiration to get at and get shooting again. And we'll give you the dates. Look in the Kite, there'll be information there, and there'll also be information emailed to all members.
And that's to submit images for our critique session.
Yes.
And so please keep that in mind. It's not limited to those two influences, but we're looking forward to seeing your images, and hopefully we'll all learn from seeing them and having them critiqued. Okay, so that's it, my dear. Everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margie. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Nancy.